I'm with Steve Fulop, the downtown councilman. We're talking about your ordinance that you try to pass in City Hall. What is it called?
It's a pay-to-play redevelopment ordinance. It's an expansion of the current pay-to-play laws at the state to apply at the local level for developers who are involved in the redevelopment process.
Were you surprised it was defeated by the city council?
It was the first time in the state that it was defeated at a first reading ordinance, so I would say that Jersey City now has the dubious distinction of being the only city in the state to vocally oppose it at a first reading.
You know, I've been going to council meetings for over 20 years, and I have really probably never saw a first reading ordinance shot down in my life. Normally they give it introduction to discuss it, but the public never had that right to discuss, you know, the pros and cons of pay-to-pay.
I would say that every argument against it that they had was fairly weak from the standpoint that it would hinder their fundraising ability, because in reality it wouldn't, for the reason that it only would affect developers who are engaged actively in the redevelopment process that a lot of the time is no bid contracts. So outside of that, they could still fundraise the same way that they could have fundraised before. So any insinuation that it would affect their fundraising, or that only wealthy people can fundraise now with that ordinance in place, you could flip the argument over and say, well, now anybody who's against it is basically saying that they can only fundraise when they have a developer strung up because of the fact that they're coming in front of the board. So it's exactly what you want to stop, and it's sad that they don't realize it.
So what do you expect to do? I mean, obviously you had the public with you. I went to the meeting. It was standing room only. People came to say we want pay-to-play to pass. So what are you going to do next?
We asked Robert Byrne for the numbers as far as what it would take to get a referendum, to get it on the ballot and pursue it that way. My understanding, it's based on the numbers and the turnout of the last general election. So the Menendez election was obviously, for the state, for the U.S. Senate, was a sizable turnout. This coming November election, there is no statewide election, so the turnout's obviously going to be significantly lighter. So based on what he says, we're going to go and visit the numbers and see where we go from there.
So I believe it's something like 15%, or it was a portion of the vote, something like that.
It's either a portion of the registered voters or a portion of the voters who turned out.
Who turned out, yes. Because I know that I visited Hoboken, and they only need 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot because it's a smaller town. But what happened is that the people in Hoboken, the council people, turned around when they saw they it's going to pass. They were in favor of it. Is that amazing?
Yeah, it's amazing. I would say if we get it on the if we were to get it on the ballot, it would pass overwhelmingly, and because I think the general public views it as a no-brainer. If somebody's engaged in negotiations with the city, they shouldn't be giving money to elected officials at the same time that they're doing that. It just is reasonable, and it just makes sense.
Yeah. As you know, I went to the council meeting and I bought their Healy's campaign contribution. What disturbed me more than anything else is the number of City Hall employees who are making probably modest salaries that are giving $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000 campaign contribution. These are the people the city must evaluate for performances, and they're giving out contributions. That's disturbing. So I'm just hoping that if with this pass, we can strengthen that, because a person growing a salary should not feel obligated to give money to the mayor.
I agree. It affects the quality of employees that you get as a result of that. The best employees that I found are the ones who are not engaged in the political process at all. It's the people who have been in City Hall for quite some time. The reality is that they probably never get to the top spot. They're usually second in or third in charge, but they're the people who actually have done the work. And this is not a blanket all statement, but it's a lot of the times they're the ones who've been the best employees and the most efficient. They don't give campaign contributions. They've just done their job, administration after administration, and they're the ones who are most effective. The ones who are least effective sometimes tend to be the ones who are most politically active. And that's a sad situation, and that affects performance and overall services delivered to residents who probably don't care as much about the inner workings of City Hall. They just want to see the police, they want to see their garbage picked up, they just want to see the trees trimmed when they call for it, and sometimes those services are lacking here, and I think it all is related together.
Well, Steve, I wish you luck. I just want you to know that from my point of view, we as customers pay for this, because whether you are a vendor or a developer or a person who started a business, they're giving so much money to City Hall that when we either buy a rug in Central Avenue or rent an apartment in Newport, we're paying for this. We're paying for this as a form of a customer. It's a cost of business, so they pass it along to us.
Yeah, I would say it's like the mentality needs to be kind of as it is in the private sector, with the constituents and the residents being the customers, and people in City Hall need to realize that we're the ones that are supposed to provide the service, and the customer is always right. So when you have such a big turnout as we did the other day, and the elected officials just disregard the turnout, they're really missing the boat and missing the connection that, hey, they work for the residents at the end of the day. So, and I think the process is going to correct itself. I really, really do.
So this is your political campaign for the next year, is to make sure that pay to play is a focus?
We're gonna basically, absolutely, I'm committed to this. So I think that depending on what the numbers are to get it on the ballot, we're either going to do it this year or next year. But my personal goal is that before I'm done, that this will be squared away, and it'll be something that, with or without the support of the council, it's going to be policy in Jersey City.
So are you asking for the public to help you right now? Should I put your email on this?
Yep, you could, if you're interested in getting involved, certainly reach out. You could email me at Fulop, F-U-L-O-P-S @jcnj.org, or you can certainly call City Hall, and I would say that I'm going to work with Civic JC, which is the organization that initially pushed this with the Citizens Campaign, and we're going to explore next steps.
Okay, I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.